wait for that. Yes. Good. Yes, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, greetings wherever you are, and whatever time you will be watching our YouTube video. So, welcome to our first Constitution study group meeting on the 2nd of January 2025, our very first meeting of the new year. And so, so we are very pleased that we were able to finish 2024 and have now met for the first time in 2025. We shall also meet on Saturday, the 4th, for the first time this year. So welcome. And as usual, we shall be reading and sharing our thinking behind the reading as we go through this chapter highlighted on the screen. So I'd like to welcome Sister Marsha, Sister Ida, and Brother Pigeon. We started a bit late this today, so we are expecting others will join us as we continue. So welcome. As usual, we shall read and then share our thinking. So welcome once again. Why are we reading this? Because this is the philosophy and ideology of progressive Pan-Africanism, and so that's why we read it, in order to share Pan-Africanist thoughts on what thought went into the struggle for the decolonization of Africa. So welcome. Right. So Sister Ida, are you able to read for us today?
I am. If you can tell me what the word
Prolegomena is it's like a preface, a forward.
Okay, so it's Prolegomena. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Prolegomena. Yeah, it's like a forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, before you say you write a book, or when you write a book, you write a forward, and but just what's important about the word is that it sets out the vision of the reader, and if you like, the boundaries. So before you build a house, you know the land on which you're going to build, you know the boundary of the land before you build anything on the land.
Okay, so thank you.
That's what it is in philosophy.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So the reading is as follows. The motive lying behind Prolegomena is a natural one. In certain circumstances, it's even commendable.
Sister, remember to slow down for us, yeah?
Okay. In certain circumstances, it's even commendable. It is an attempt to make sure that one's philosophical insights shall be conserved. An attempt to persuade the world that all the spade work of philosophy has been done, that all that is left to do is to build upon this final foundation. It is a claim to perfection. In the political sphere, Aristotle made a similar claim to perfection. Having analyzed the nature of a democratic constitution, he said that it was the natural way of organizing a society. To claim that it is natural is to contrast it with other types of constitution, which presumably are natural or less natural. By a natural constitution, Aristotle meant one which consorted most of the talents of man and the ethics which best suited him. A natural constitution was therefore for him one which gave political expression to the nature of man. In saying, therefore, that a democratic constitution is the natural way of organizing a society, he's claiming perfection for it. Pluto was called to Socrates to educate.
So it's Plato, and it's a town, Syracuse.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
Pluto was called to Syracuse to educate a future ruler. There he saw a beautiful opportunity to producing a ruler tailored to his political ideas. He seized the opportunity and failed. So he returned to Athens, a disappointed man. Aristotle, too, had responsibilities for the education of Alexander, later called the Great. But the democratic seeds which he sowed in Alexander's barren ground, but the democratic seeds which he sowed within Alexander's barren ground.
So withered, huh? Withered.
Oh, withered. Sorry, I can't read. Sorry.
Right.
Sowed withered in Alexander's barren ground. These two great philosophers of antiquity, so full of ideas for the regeneration of society utterly lacked the power to bring them to social fruition. So that's the reading for today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, but Pigeon, can you raise I don't know if it's my end, raise the paragraph slightly up? Yes, thank you. Yeah, so there we have it. We have read those 3 paragraphs, and we shall now share our thoughts, our thinking on it. Brother Coco, welcome. So let's start with Sister Marsha.
I don't quite have a thought to share yet. Still listening and ruminating.
Okay, no problem. Brother Pigeon, are you able to share?
No, I'm still not. That the background is still not that quiet enough. But I'm also trying to do more text for invite members to join. So please give me just few.
Okay. Yeah, it's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Brother Coco, you've just joined us, so I'm not sure if you heard everything. But are you able to be the first to share, or are you also not able to share?
I think he said he couldn't yet.
Well, he couldn't. All right. Is it in the chat?
It's in the chat, yes.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yes, that's what he said.
Yes, I've just read it. All right. Sister Ida, so that's
Okay.
fine. That's fine, Brother Coco. Thanks for letting us know. Sister Ida, you read. Normally, we don't ask the reader to share yet.
Well,
feel free to share if you want to. Yes.
Okay. I think what I gather from it is that that when he says that long word which I still can't pronounce, prolegamy. He's trying to. Sorry, please say it again.
Prolegomena.
Prolegomena.
Lego and Mina.
Okay, I think he's Prolegomena. I think he's trying to tell us about these two philosophers, Pluto and Aristotle, about how it was their wish. They thought that it was, that they say that the best laid plans of men and mice don't work out. So I think what he's trying to say is that, they thought they had great opportunities in the people they had set out to try and teach, or to try and put their ideas forward to. And they thought because they were young, they could bend them to their will and to their way of thinking. Because they often say that, what is it? Give me a child until he's 7, and great things, you can change their way of thinking, or you can educate them in how you want them to behave. But that at the end of the day, it didn't work out. And so I think in a way we're being told to not put not necessarily all our eggs in one basket, but to not believe that we know the way and think that it will happen because we say so, is what I would say. Because in a way, I think a lot of people think that their children, that they can make their children or those who are younger than them believe in what they say. But at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily work out that way. That it has to be more than just your wishes. That you have to show them a way that will make them want to continue on the path that you're trying to instill in them. That's what I think I would say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Sister Mash, are you able to share now?
If I had to offer a thought, I think I would focus on the part where Plato is sent to Syracuse to help with the education of a leader. I think looking at the battery of questions that were sent, this idea of how do we prepare leadership, why does leadership fail, where does leadership fail, which I think is something that is a useful reflection. I think on the continent, in the diaspora, I think we've seen, this success, but also I think the failure of many Black leaders over the time. And so that stuck with me just in terms of not just how we prepare the younger generations, but also how do we prepare our leaders? What are some of the things that we're doing right? What are some of the things that we are not?
Yeah, thank you very much. So why do we think that Aristotle failed? And then the other question is, why do we think that Plato also failed? Because both of them had the chance to put into practice their philosophical ideas. We recall that Aristotle, his was democracy, and Plato's was philosophical leadership. So why do we think they both failed?
I don't know. I mean, one of the things that I think is very dependent on, whether a thought or an idea or a political movement or a social movement is successful or not is the time. I think, there are moments in history that lend themselves better to certain kinds of impetus. So If we think of the 60s across the world, it was a time of discomfort. It was a time of revolution. Much happened. If you think, however, of the 80s, it was almost a complete reversal of some of the successes of the 60s. So, um, I'm just gonna say that sometimes we have to be, I don't know if the right word is strategic, but the time in which we are fighting can control the outcome of what we're fighting for. I think another thing is how well do the ideas that we are working with um, situate with the individual person that we're trying to give those ideas to. So maybe those are some of the kind of considerations. But to be honest, I don't know the history of Alexander the Great enough to be able to say that any of those two things could be applied or not.
Okay.
I think I would say that unless you take into account the individuals that you're trying to teach and try to get them to also explain and voice their opinions and their thoughts, you can't expect to necessarily teach them anything, because what one person says is not what another person necessarily believes. And I think until you start examining how they think and then guiding them, you can't necessarily expect them to take what you say at face value, unless you do that through some sort of brutal means and they're too scared to think for themselves. But I think if people have thoughts, then they naturally have ideas that you have to try and understand and work with and guide. If you have your own ideas that you want them to learn, I don't necessarily think it's easy to teach people or children, especially people like Alexander must have been in a privileged position. Like he must have been from a family who were privileged in the first place, or like a royal sort of I don't know enough about Alexander the Great, but I presume from what they're saying he came from some sort of royal family or some sort of family that's have a lot of status.
Yes.
And those are the very
Yes, she started out, as you can imagine, this is how children were educated before public education came into force, where all children went to school, paid for by the society. In those days, as you can
there would have
imagine,
been tutors.
yes, people who had the money were those who were able to employ teachers to come and teach the children at home. And so
but
that's
then
what people look at.
but then those sort of young people would also have been very spoilt and almost have whatever they wanted. So it wasn't necessary that they felt that the teacher was, they probably felt they were as much entitled to tell the teacher something as for the teacher to tell them something.
Well, then, one could argue, couldn't one, that even if Alexander could not bring democracy to Greek society, at least he was able to do something that Aristotle wanted, which was to help him steal the books from the library.
Okay.
Because he is the one that, you recall, he is the one that invaded Alexandria. In fact, the town is named after him. The African city,
Alexander.
was named after him, Alexandria, because he conquered it. And couldn't you argue that maybe that was Aristotle's goal, to influence a young man so that he could help him get hold of the books he wanted and to put his name to them. It's just a thought, by the way.
But it says, but the democratic seed which he sowed, withered. So and the fact that Alexander didn't bring democracy to or didn't see the democracy of having a library that was open to all, but stole the library. I think that's part of the withering of the seed. I don't know. I would have thought. Because after all, a library doesn't necessarily, maybe in those days it did belong to one family or one group, but I don't know. I think the fact that it says that that his democratic seeds didn't succeed says something as well.
I think that's an interesting point that you're making there, Sister Ida, because the question
Sorry, could you speak up? I can't hear you very well. Sorry.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, a bit better, thank you.
No, I was saying it's an interesting point that you're making, because the question is, can an individual who is not literate, and I don't mean that in the sense of not being able to read, I mean it more in the sense of being able to comprehend and to analyze, can that person exercise democracy? Right? So that's interesting that the library, the point that you were making about the library remaining closed, but then so not really preparing people for a place in democracy, I guess. So that's an interesting point too.
Yeah, but then do you have to be literate in order to vote? If democracy is voting, do you have to be literate in order to vote?
Is democracy just about?
Sorry.
I was going to say, is democracy just about voting?
Yeah, but to be literate, it means what? To be able to read and write.
Yeah.
You have to know how to read and write in order for you to express your opinions and to say, this is what I want. I don't want this leader. I want that leader. I want this person to be parliamentarian. Do you have to be able to read and write?
I don't know. I'm not really taking literacy here as the ability to read and write. I think that especially with the education system within the Caribbean, I can't speak to the rest of the diaspora, but I know about the Caribbean. Individuals are taught to read and write and are still left illiterate. So I'm looking at literacy as something more than just the ability to see a word on paper. I am thinking about literacy as political literacy, historical literacy, that information that helps us to be critical and analytical. And, a person could be literate in the terms of that they know what a number is, they know what a letter character is, but they can be left illiterate in the sense of that. And I don't think that a person who is illiterate in that way can truly participate successfully in democracy.
But that's the question I'm raising, is that, do we think that is really the case? I mean, if you can't read and write, if you're not literate in a language, because literacy is the ability to read texts and to write texts, characters, whatever language you are born in, or you are born with, or born under. So I'm just asking the question, do we really think that if you speak a particular language, not literate in that language, does it mean you can't be critical? I'm just asking. Anyway,
I don't really understand.
Yeah,
I don't really understand why you're both going on about literacy, because I think this is about democracy.
Yeah, but the reason is that, Sister Ida, some people believe that for you to be able to exercise your democratic rights, you have to be literate. So in the past, if you didn't own property, you are not considered worthy to vote. You have to be own property and be a man. If you're a woman, you can't vote, and so on. So there will always be conditions. There always used to be conditions why people couldn't vote. Anyway, thanks for drawing
But
our attention.
excuse me, if I may just say that voting has nothing to do with literacy at all. I don't think.
That's the point I'm raising. That
Okay.
if democracy is, if at the end of the day, you're democratic, to be democratic means that you cast your choice, you make your choice about two or more things. My question is, do you have to be literate to do that? And what Sister Mara is saying is that yes, to some extent, yes, because if you have to make a choice on complex, for example, graphs that show, for instance, the standard of life over a period which requires interpretation and understanding. If you can't, even if you can read and write, but you can't understand that, then how do you exercise your democratic right? What Samasha is saying is that you can be literate, but there are different types of literacy. Anyway, that's what Samara said. So Brother Coco had his hand up. Yeah.
I just want back to reference our previous reading on the court discussion you're having. In regards to this paragraph I have highlighted, that confirms Aristotle's initial decision or initial thinking in regards to this political rights.
Yes, which is a different argument, but yes, you are right. Can you just hold your thought? Let's hear what Brother Coco has to say and then come back to you. Brother Coco. Brother Coco.
Greetings, comrades.
Are you able to talk? Are you able to contribute now?
Yes,
Okay.
I don't want to. Yeah, I have just a limited amount of contribution to make.
Okay, then share your thinking. Don't comment.
Yeah,
share your thinking.
Yeah. One of those is that the rulers which he was tutoring, you could argue that they wanted power for themselves. Democracy does not allow people to do that, to have power for themselves. Democracy, even its most limited power, it leads to people choosing who is to rule over them. But if you go to Alexander and say, Alexander, you need to share power, do you think Alexander will want to share power? No, he wants to keep power unto himself. And as well as this other leader who Aristotle was trying to educate. So in telling them that they have to follow democracy, it's sort of putting their fate or their destiny in other men's under other men's choice or other men's power, and those rulers will not necessarily accede to that because they want to hold power. That's what we know about power. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, as they always say. So you can argue that the way Aristotle was aiming this was aiming in the wrong direction. He needed to teach the people. He needed to teach people who were making the change. The people, if we're saying democracy is the rule of the people by the people, then you teach the people about it. Then they will want to make that change, not the rulers. It's a wrong target market for his ideas. But moving away from that, there again, let's talk about what I'm seeing here is that this is about perfection. About Aristotle is about perfection. And again, to me, I'm not, I mean, I'm still stuck on what Dr. Nkume had said with the facts. He said, do not be inebriated in the facts. Or because the system is the way it is, don't think it has to be that way. But with Aristotle, he talks about democracy being a natural system, a natural political system. Then what Dr. Nkume here is saying is he is contrasting that with other systems, political systems, and thinking, okay, with democracy, everything has to be natural. Hence, if it was natural, then people will adopt it naturally. But then the two cases here which are used, they're used to demonstrate that it's not natural. there are other systems which are always in contrast. Yeah.
Yeah, but Coco, do you not think that it is natural to some extent? I mean, if you go to traditional African society, whenever there was a decision to be made on something, even in the chief's house or the chief's palace, there will be wide discussion. Sometimes the people are involved. It used to be in the square where the entire community will gather and make a decision. And even in that meeting, a child is allowed to speak their mind.
Yeah. No, let me try to come back to you on that. In that, when he says natural, he expects that all systems, all economies, everyone should naturally pick democracy as the right system. But unfortunately, there are always people looking for their own interests. So under egalitarianism, yes, democracy will naturally happen. But in cases where we have hierarchical societies, as Greek society was then, you cannot say it was natural, because those in power would want to maintain their power by all means necessary. Hence, it's hard to claim that it is natural. So natural is something which it goes anywhere, anyhow. You understand? It happens without people even agitating for it, because we all love our neighbors. We want our neighbors to do well. Hence, we forget about our self-interests and sort of put our neighbors' interests first. And that is what democracy sort of does. It has to, is it intended to do that?
Yeah, but Coco, so what do you think Nkrumah is telling us in these paragraphs?
Nkrumah, again, he's saying to us, don't take everything at face value. Do not take everything at face value. What Aristotle was saying here was prescribing, again, is a doctrine. He's just putting a doctrine on the line and not allowing it to be challenged. And the word which has been used here, which is prolegomena or jomena, is about instructing. You are giving instruction or a sort of a background, an introduction to how the system has to run. So it's sort of a prescription. And I think the way I see Aristotle is someone who had read. And once he had read that, he found that this was the best way of doing things and wanted people to do things the way that he saw them. So you can't see someone who is willing to be challenged or willing to entertain new ideas to further develop whatever ideas he already has. So to me, it's someone who is not open-minded. And I think what Dr. Nkrumah is saying to us here is to be open-minded. See where democracy came from, how it developed, how it was prescribed, but don't just stay there and say, this is perfection. Always look for ways of improving yourselves.
Right. Okay. Sister Ida had her hand up. Sister Ida, can you hold on a sec? Let Brother Pigeon, I think he was sharing something with us. Brother Pigeon.
Chair, I'm happy if you can allow Sister Ida to go ahead, but I can go ahead if you insist.
I don't insist. I just thought you want to chip in with you wanted to say something, if you can throw light.
I was okay. I can just then briefly link the previous paragraph and then allow her to contribute before I come to my contribution. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. There was a question when you were asking about literacy and making political choice on whether it matters. And I wanted to read this paragraph we read before, where Aristotle said that Aristotle did not, however, believe that each man was able to contribute to the truth. In this, he was reflecting in his thinking what was a social fact in Greece. To say that each man was able to contribute to the truth will require that at social level that each man should have a political right. That sentence of having a political right, which means at social level in the other Greece, not every man had a political right. Now Now, to say that each man was equally able to contribute to truth will require that each man should have equal political right. The fact that Greek society were not in accord with this, which means Greek society did not give equal right to each man in the society. The democracy of Greek was a democracy which was supported in the main by slave labor. And where Aristotle did not criticize that inequality. So it means if they had inequality of education, there was an inequality of now work, like what Nkrumah then described as functional differences. So inequality in terms of labor and gender, which then made not each man to be able to contribute to the political process or be given a right for political rights. And you know, Brother Kwame, we had also this discussion some times back, that even in some societies, even today, there are some even age limits for participation in terms of political decisions and voting and whatever, not even in terms of literacy, because I have not seen a country in Africa today that say that if you don't have a degree, you cannot vote, but rather there are limitations in terms of age, and other limitations also go maybe sometimes basically in terms of age, but there's also unsung or unsaid role in a society, in some society, where there's also limitation in terms of gender, where people think that some gender cannot pursue some political positions. So this is where Aristotle to me is coming from, in a society that had this discrimination.
So you are saying that even given Aristotle himself, in terms of what he's thinking, are you saying that even what he was suggesting wasn't even democracy in that sense? It wasn't really democratic. Is that what you're saying? Therefore, how can it be natural?
Yeah. But you see, when you read the tenets, remember sometimes back when I did the presentation on democracy, you read the principles and the fundamental principles of democracy. The tenets and the principle are very clear that one man, one vote, which provides equality of voting right in terms of political decisions, that do not limit gender, age, or sometimes even education level. But that which is actually the core principle of democracy is not even practiced, or was not even practiced in Greece, and is not even practiced in so many countries today. So democracy as per se might not be what Aristotle is saying here. And if Aristotle is talking of this type of democracy, then that is what is not purely democracy, what may be called anarchism, or some level of where the elites rule a society based on other society, but it's not pure democracy.
Yes, but okay, but based on what you've read, for Aristotle, democracy means that, well, at least those who had the right to vote, the free people had the right to make their political choices known. They had political rights. So okay, well, thank you very, very much for that, Sister Ida.
I think I was agreeing with what Brother Coco was saying, because I think I had been trying to say that as well. But
I also remind us, what was he saying?
Oh dear, don't ask me. But I also think that the fact that, to me, democracy is a matter of choice. It doesn't matter whether it's voting or whether it's individual everyday things. It's about choice. And to me, I think that he wasn't in the same position as, neither of them were in the same position as the people they went to teach. And I think that the people they went to teach were already spoiled, and thought they were above any of the, apart from their parents, they were above anybody else who came to teach them. I think that is, there seems to be that sort of implication being put, especially after what Brother Pigeon has just reread to us about people sort of not being in the same, about having a slave workforce and people not being on the same standing. So I think that they were teachers and they were never going to be on the same standing as their pupils. And therefore the pupils weren't necessarily ever going to listen to them.
So you think that is why they failed?
Yes, because they were trying to teach individual people, or individual children who I think had already got the idea that they were above anybody who was around them.
In that case, you are speculating.
I am speculating because
Okay.
that's all I can do, even in
That's okay.
what I read. That's what it suggests to me.
Yeah, I don't think the historical facts confirm that they didn't. They failed because they thought they belonged to the aristocracy and therefore they don't want to listen to their teachers and so on.
Well, that would also explain Baron. You know, what's the word? Withered in Baron Alexander's barren grounds.
That could mean, for instance, that you know the common entrance exam that we went through in secondary school, before we went to secondary school in Ghana. You know that the children of the rich and powerful are not always those who pass the exams.
Okay, yeah.
So just because you are rich and powerful doesn't mean your children will be bright and very clever and be the first in the subjects. They could sometimes be the last.
Or even want to listen, yes.
Yeah, so intelligence doesn't go with your position in society.
All that is what I'm also half saying, because those who come from wealthy families don't necessarily want to listen to what they're being taught.
Yeah, but the point is that it's not just that. It's just the fact that they just can't follow the subject. You teach them mathematics and they don't get it. You know, yes, they are children of the very powerful. He's the son of the king or the daughter of the queen or whatever. But the son of the slave understands mathematics just like that, where the son of the king can't. So sometimes it's not.
Isn't that a matter of wanting to learn, where some will want to learn and others won't?
That is. You're
a teacher, so you know better than me what it is that makes students either
there are some children who want to learn. Sometimes there are children who want to learn, but they try, but they just find that it's too much for them for all kinds of reasons. But yeah.
Okay.
And certainly the point you make is one of them. That sometimes children are spoiled because of their background, and therefore they don't want to learn. Yes. Where we come from, we have the experience of children of very rich people who just smoke grass, smoke weed. When they go to school, they don't go to classes. They go and hide behind the school building and they smoke all kinds of things, indulge in all kinds of social activities, and instead of learning, steal their parents' cars and come and show off if it's a mid-school and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, all right. So yeah, so let's go back to Brother Pigeon to share his thoughts, his thinking on the paragraph. Brother the King, welcome. Yes, Brother Pigeon. Are you able to share your thoughts or thinking on the paragraph?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Brother.
Yes, Brother Kwame. I'm now able to share my thinking. Can I proceed?
Yeah, continue. Share your thinking with us.
Now, here actually, I'm trying. We're looking at, of course, these introductory works, as you say, the preface work of both Plato and Aristotle. And how do they translate their thinking and their theories or their philosophy into political theories? Probably their political theories into practice and their understanding. So I'm seeing the key question I'm asking myself is, when you read this word Prolegomena, what was the purpose of, or what is the motive behind this Prolegomena? And it's very clear that it's either desire to actually preserve one philosophical insight and either try to champion that and make it to be the everlasting or the lasting foundation for our future inquiry. So everybody want to put that fundamental start in regards to their philosophical interest, what Plato want to pursue and what Aristotle is trying to pursue. So they want to make a mark and either make a foundation for their thinking. again, the problem is that it is actually, this foundation is also, towards the end of it says, is a claim to perfection. Now, that actually is something that either try to mean that, okay, so it means that their philosophies or whether their political theory were perfect. And when you say something is perfect, then we need to ask ourselves, of course, a question is there any perfect system? Is there any perfect philosophy or perfect theory? Because by putting the tag of perfection, which means it can never be criticized, improved, or either challenged, because it's complete. So, of course, we even try to let this in the continent today. People say they have the perfect system running, the perfect development, whatever plan, and everything else. Is there really that element of perfection? And if we agree that there's this element of perfection, then does it mean that it then stops future explorations in regards to improving or making other philosophy better, or making world better or a society better? Because that's very important here, because by them trying to claim perfection of their thinking or their philosophy.
Hold on. Brother Pigeon, hold on. It is the Prolegomena that is a claim to perfection, not that Aristotle himself said that what he was saying was perfect. But does that make sense?
But that Prolegomena is for who? Aristotle and Plato, which means it's their property intellectually.
Well, when people write philosophy, any philosophy book, they always put a forward that this is what my insight is, and then so it is that is a claim to perfection, not that you say that what I am saying is perfect. Am I making sense?
No, just to understand you better, so it means that Prolegomena is not their writings, but writing of somebody commenting to their work.
Oh, no, it is they who have written it.
Now tell me, if you have written that you claim perfection in your work, then you claim again that perfection is not of your saying.
That is what I wanted to clarify. He is not claiming that the Prolegomena is not claiming that what you are going to read is perfect. But by virtue of your saying so, you are making a claim to perfection. There's a difference there. Am I making sense?
Now, that's...
A claim to perfection is not to say that you said that this is perfect.
But wait, Brother Kwame. Now, that's where I'm having an issue, Eve. Whoever can say this is perfect or not perfect is only actually the privilege of a reader. Because a reader can read a text or interact with a thinking or a philosophy, then say that this philosophy might neither be perfect or imperfect. But to you, a writer of the text, the originator of the philosophy, you already claim that in your introductory. So how do you run away again from that assertion in all of your work?
Well, in the sense that, if, for instance, you say that this philosophy is for so and so, and if you want to do so and so, this is a philosophy you should use, and so on and so forth. Just by virtue of you saying that, you are saying that people shouldn't think beyond that. So it's not the same thing as saying that what I'm about to say is perfect. Therefore, everyone should regard it as perfection. That's different.
Okay. Let me give in to that. Now,
so it's a claim. That's why Nkrumah said it is a claim to perfection.
Now, you're verifying them. Actually, you see, Nkrumah says that it's a claim to perfection. Nkrumah could have not brought the word claim from nowhere, unless, actually, as you have admitted, was confirmed in their Prolegomena. But
you see, that's why if you look at the second paragraph, you see in the third line, can you see what it says? To claim that it is natural is to contrast it with other types of constitution, which are presumably unnatural or less natural. You see, so when you make that, so you may not say it, but if you follow the logic of what you are saying, this is what you may mean. So when I said last week, you remember, Sister Masha and I had an extended written communication on this matter of how I said something. So when I said that there is no such thing as Western philosophy, I was taken to task because it sounded like I was denying that something called Western philosophy existed. That may not have been my claim, but that is how it was open to be interpreted, and rightly so. So sometimes you may not claim something, but the way you say it could be interpreted as you making a claim.
Okay, let me proceed then. Now, however, of course, we are trying now to critique this claim of perfection, as you have actually been saying, and is what actually also Nkrumah is trying to critique, that claim of perfection as he's saying it. And that perfection claim can then stifle actually further intellectual developments. You see, either if you claim it's perfect, and I think that's why Nkrumah is coming to say that it's a claim, because if you claim that your work is perfect, then basically it's like you are closing doors for any other thinking that might try to work something else, because already you have a perfect stuff. But that is actually the crucial point here, because by presenting,
but hold on. Even if you don't claim it is natural or it is perfect in words, yeah, by virtue of the fact that you are the master of the class or you are the master of the academy. So in those days they had an academy. So Plato had an academy, which Aristotle attended. If you are the teacher in that academy, and so you lay out your views, students may be slightly hesitant to say that they don't agree with you. Am I making sense? So sometimes you may not make that claim, but just because it is your position as the head of the academy, which Plato was. I mean, luckily for us, Aristotle disagreed with Plato and said that no, he disagreed with him, and that democracy, he preferred democracy to his non-democracy, where he wanted only a certain group of people to rule society. You see.
Okay, thank you for that. But what now I want also to look at is the effect of that claim. Because you see, by presenting their system as
yes.
You see, by presenting their systems or their theory as a complete thing, as to their thinking, could then actually risk philosophers or discourage anybody to criticize or even do further exploration to this. And you see, what Nkrumah is doing is more criticism and further exploration. But by actually giving that initial claim could stop anybody from moving further to explore more or cross-examine or even critically look at their work. And this is what Nkrumah is actually now trying to challenge by trying now to look at their work critically. And he has been doing that all along as we move various chapters before. Because he's now trying to actually look and cross-examine these so-claimed to be perfect theories or philosophies. And this also link back to what we covered in the first chapter in the introduction, when Nkrumah said that colonial students were exposed to great philosophers, you see, of those times that they could not be able, some of them, as you have said, some of them could not be able to challenge their thinking or their philosophies, and others had to accept them as they were. You see? Now, Aristotle's claim to perfection, as you look in politics especially, now in the next paragraph when talk of in the political sphere, asserting that democracy is the natural form of governance, is more of like also claiming that democracy is more perfect because it's natural.
But you remember, Brother Pigeon, the paragraph we took us back to, the one you read, we went back to read. You notice there that not everyone in Aristotle's democracy had political rights.
That is something that is also very interesting. That is come from the two words from the same mouth. But actually, just to move to this, now that natural in this context actually try to mean that that system aligns with human nature. It's something inborn. It's like it's seamlessly aligned with you as a person as you are living. It's natural, and that's why it can appear to be more perfect as he try to tie it. It's natural in you. But if that democracy is trying to call natural here might be the democracy he was talking in the last paragraph, the other paragraph you are talking about, I think that's then where he got the thinking that a slave is also a natural slave.
And you can see how that Prolegomena has meant that when the West embraced Aristotle, they continue to enslave people because they thought it was it.
Because this is the second time the word natural is being used here. And when it used in the first paragraph, the previous paragraph, it was used to assert that slaves were natural by nature. So it was also maybe a perfect system because it was natural as slaves to exist. As he's trying to claim also democracy being natural, then it claims some level of perfection because it's born out of natural circumstances or it's born out of human nature. Now, if this is the thinking he had, then that's why he was not able to challenge that system before in the Greek society because he found it natural. And more by finding it natural, he found it perfect in his thinking. But as I move a bit, I'm also trying to say that actually by labeling that democracy as natural, then Aristotle is trying to suggest that other forms of government are less desirable or even unnatural, as you are seeing it down here, less natural or unnatural. This can be seen as actually a way to solidify the status of democracy as you see it, as the ideal system or structure. But this also can potentially hinder the exploration of other alternative systems as well.
But then how do you say that democracy is natural, it's perfect, and then you embrace it as a country, and then you claim that all men are created equal, they are endowed by their creator by rights, in inalienable rights, and in the same breath you enslave African Americans. I mean, you understand? So how do you say that you are a democratic country, you believe in democracy, and then when the ANC approach you because the Dutch inheritors were imposing apartheid on them, which is the national government in South Africa, back in those days, and then when they approach you, the most powerful country, to help them, you say no, we are not going to help you. We rather help the apartheid government. So you can see, you claims that one has democracy, one has what is perfect, and then at the same time, you're not practicing it. So are we seeing parallels? Yes.
The question you should ask is, why are you not practicing it?
Well, if you ask, they will say they are practicing it, but it's only for them. So the democracy in South Africa was only for white people. The democracy in America was only for white people. The democracy in England in those days was only for white men. It didn't include white women and children. Only property holders. It's only for property holders.
Have you ever seen any president in Africa that says that his country is not developed, is poor, nobody claimed that. Nobody even come out to say that. They always say that it's perfect. They're doing good.
Well, with Africa, that's why some of our people are claiming that the democracy we have is Western democracy. It's not good for us. We need our own democracy, and so on and so forth.
Okay, may I proceed, or you able to Crocus?
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm.
Okay, now permit me then to finish the third paragraph. Now here we are shifting now to the failure of the implementation. Now we are arriving at the test of the Prolegomena. Now we are putting it into test. We are moving from perfect theory to now practical test of the theory. And now you see, it's very clear that in this attempt to them to now put into text or into practice the perfect theory, it fails. Starting with now Plato's failure, and then now you go to also what actually Aristotle refers to the Alexander the Great as well. Now, these tensions actually in political philosophy is actually rising from the difficulty to translate this abstract thinking and theories into concrete social or political realities. And that's, I think, is very important when you said sometimes back when I came to this class that Nkrumah tried to analyze these philosophies and these theories, but he couldn't find what could be practicable or applicable or speaks to the reality of African context. And that's why consciousness was designed actually by Nkrumah. After reading all this philosophy, he realized that they could not translate to concrete or social realities of Africa. And Africa needed what could translate to its social reality that speaks to its problem. So I don't know if the Ghana, as you've said before, I think Ghana with Nkrumah tried to practice consciousness. Other countries try to borrow, and this is the problem also borrowing philosophies to put it into your context, because the contexts are not the same. And that's why I think it's the failure of Marxism as well, Brother Kwame, in Africa. Because it cannot work to the reality of the society. And any philosophy and ideology must speak to the social and political reality of a society. So this is why it's failing, because when it was put into practice, both of Plato and Aristotle's thinking, it couldn't work. So just to finish.
One of the arguments against, well, it depends on what Marxism you mean, which Marxism you mean, but there are different types of Marxism. But one of the arguments against Marxism was that why develop a capitalist society and then to destroy it and create a socialist one. In other words, if capitalism is the problem, why should Africa waste its time developing a capitalist society only for it to be undermined by a socialist society? Why can't we go straight to socialism? But then the whole point of Marx is that class struggle, you see, because capitalism leads to class struggle, and then the working class will then overthrow the capitalist class and so on. So why don't we avoid all that and just go straight to socialism? And then that's where then the argument arose with the Nyerere saying, well, why don't we just go straight to African socialism? And then the other saying, well, there is no such thing as African socialism. There can be socialism in Africa, and so on and so forth.
Okay, just to bring my thoughts to an end is that this text is actually warning us on the danger of claiming perfection on political and philosophical ideologies or philosophies, because the perfection that was claimed by Aristotle and Plato here was tested to fail in one or the other. But it also emphasized the importance of continuous critical examination and the difficulty that you have to face when you try to translate abstract ideas into real world change or challenges. Because when we put now practice of some of philosophy and ideology, there's challenges we have to face, you see. And these are really actually relevant to us in this contemporary Africa, as we struggle with philosophies and ideologies, where we have actually critical engagement with the dominant narratives and also externally imposed solutions. You see, there are people of the West who want to impose their thinking to us. So how we try actually to put this into practice, the challenges you have to face, and the need to cross-examine and question and critically examine most of things and proposal put on table to us as a continent as a way forward is very important. But if we just assume that these are perfect table, let's put it here and let's work it out and it will work. That's why I think even democracy is struggling in Africa. Over a period of time, I can say there's no any true democracy. As per the doctrine and the principle of democracy, I don't think there's any true democracy in Africa to date, in this African
system. Is there any in the West?
No, even the West, I cannot say so. Because I don't think even the West has the true democracy anyway, if you ask me as well. Because you see, when even you check the story of Kamala and Trump thing, you see, when you always try a prejudice in terms of gender as well, before even you go ahead, it tells you a lot of things. When you look at even how people undermine political decisions, even a society, or even that will to make political choices, it's not actually true to the principle of democracy. I think I will need to refer back to my presentation on democracy and the research we did, because there's a very big difference in what called democracy and what is on practice.
Yeah, so could it just be, therefore, that the perfect table, as Plato envisioned it in the mind of God, that perfect table, when you come into the real world, there isn't one kind of table. There are different types of tables. There are tall tables, short tables. There are three-legged tables. There are four-legged tables. There are round tables. There are rectangular top tables. The variety is just a lot, and that maybe that is the issue. And then the question is, can we ever? So the question is this: if what you are saying is correct, which I don't doubt it is, then we can't claim perfection. But isn't the problem that there are? It's not so much that they can't claim perfection, but they are saying that a perfect table exists in the mind of God. That is a problem.
Yeah, I think it still exists in the mind of God because
they believe that God exists. And then they can pray to that God, and that isn't that where the problem is?
No, that's not the biggest problem ever. Because I think when we were reading sometimes previously on the conditions for revolution, and Nkrumah says social conditions, you see, even for a philosophy and these ideologies to work, it must be based on social realities and conditions of the people. There are people who share common or same social condition and realities, especially if you talk of us Africans, and maybe in the continent of Africa as a people, there's some same social conditions that we share as a people, and probably from common social condition we can then develop a common philosophy and ideology. We cannot claim that common philosophy and ideology can be the perfect philosophy and ideology, and thus if we claim it's perfect, then we run at danger of improving on it or trying to change, because society is not stable, because society is not constant, it's keep moving, you see, and keep moving. Then it's yes,
that is why they are saying that you are wrong and they are right. They are striving towards that perfection, which you are not even part of that perfection.
It is not, because just not to take this long, is because you see, Brother Kwame, you look at, for example, now what was being provided by the Gen Z revolution in Kenya or even in Nigeria. There are some solutions that could work for the previous generation and proposals and policies. But if you keep repeating the same policies and processes to even this generation, it doesn't fit their need and their issues and their demands. And therefore, if there's a need for you to improve on those policies and direction, so that even constitutions, they do say that constitutions, when I participated in drafting a constitution of my university and discussion of even a constitution of our country at some level, when there was a discussion on that, constitutions should not be cast on stone. They should be flexible so that they can continue to be relevant to a society. They can be adjustable. And that's why society is capable of amending one or amending two so that they work to their need. The role and the purpose of a constitution is to speak to the need of the people, not to speak to the need of the creator of that constitutional theory. Because if it does that, then it loses track of the people and the welfare of the people. And then it becomes irrelevant and people won't find any relevance in it.
That may be so, but that is the reality. The Constitution of Ghana today is the 1992 Constitution. How did it come into being? It was created to serve Rawlings. He was a military man, came into democratic governance. He wanted the same authority that soldiers have in the military. The man at the top makes all the decisions. And so they just put that into law in what called the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. And that's the problem we have after today in Ghana, that the president has too much power. He forgot that if he goes away, whoever comes after him will also have the same power. He forgot all about that. So yes, we hear you, brother, but the reality is that the Constitution of Kenya is not there to serve all of Kenyans. It's there to serve an organized interests. See, that's a problem, isn't it? Thank you very much. We are sharing our thoughts on the paragraphs that we have highlighted. We've heard from a few of us, and there are still more we haven't heard from. So let's go to Brother Deking Mauli. If you'd like to share your thoughts on the paragraph, please. If Deking is not ready, we can hear from Mr. Gonza.
Oh, no, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Okay. All right, let's hear your thoughts on the paragraphs. Are you ready to share your thoughts? You need to unmute yourself, Brother Deking Mauli.
No, I'm okay with it.
In what sense? You want to share your thoughts?
In terms of the democracy, to me, I I'll say that Aristotle hasn't really been upfront with it, and we have also gotten it twisted in terms of what democracy really stands for from him, which Nkrumah is espousing. So he has set a foundation that has really set the whole world in disarray. To me, that's how I actually see his writings to be.
It's his fault. It's Aristotle's fault, is it?
Yes, you see. So he has not service.
Well, PG, let's blame Aristotle for democracy in Africa. So, thank you. Yeah, Brother Dekin, have you finished? Share your thoughts before I go to Brother Gonza.
Yes, sir. Yes, right. I'm done with it.
Thank you. Mr. Gonza, share your thoughts, please. What's your thinking on the paragraphs on the screen?
Thank you, Chair. And
you're welcome, sir.
So I think that it's a misconception to say that there's a perfect democracy, even when the West says that we should all participate in their form of democracy, or even for Aristotle to claim that this was the natural way for man to rule himself. I think that this kind of thinking is very, very dangerous, and it speaks to the extremism. I was speaking to someone a few days ago about the European extremism, how they take things to the extreme due to the fact that they failed to reconcile the forces of nature and the forces which make up society. Therefore, they resort to extremism, to the most extreme approaches, which are very, very dangerous. And so we see this even today, that they are coming around to claim people like Obama that this is the only system which everyone is a single standard, everyone we should subscribe to. And I think that this claim is very, very dangerous, because the form of democracy is not one, it's not singular. The type of democracy which is being practiced in the West in itself is not comprehensive. We have societies in Africa which have even much more comprehensive societies. If you go to Uganda, you find that in the parliament in Uganda, you have the cripple, the handicapped are represented in parliament. You have women are represented in parliament. That in constituencies, you have to elect a man, and then you have to elect a woman in the same constituency, so that women can be able to be represented. You have all kinds of people in the Ugandan parliament that are represented. So I believe that these forms of democracy are different. They are different. And if you go back and read the Political and Social Thought of Kwame Nkrumah by Ama Baine, she says that Nkrumah's outlook was that at the end, or somewhere along the line, if Africa unites, it should be able to evolve its own form of democracy. And that form of democracy can be comprehensive. I was writing to the SUP platform this particular evening, and I said that our form of democracy as Africans, I think, should be comprehensive in a way that we should broaden the people who are participating and in what they are participating in. They should not just merely be participating in electing leaders, but rather people should have the right to participate in policies by us creating a system where people are constantly voicing their needs and their objections to certain things that are going on in society. For example, they should vote, this is the policy we want, this is the policy we want. And you have this data that is constantly coming to the government, not merely the elite sitting over there and deciding that this is what should be done when people are not saying anything. So I believe that this is a more comprehensive, system of democracy, and then broaden the people who are participating in this process to, like, for example, to 16 or 15 years. If you look at the system today, like in Ghana, the people who are voting, or the government, the number of people who are participating in the electoral process, 18 million out of the 30 million people. And even on the 18 million, you look at the just ended elections, only about 10 million participated. So now you have only about 30%, only a third of population in the country participating, and majority of the country is not participating in these things, and they are calling it democracy. So you can see that this thing is not really democracy in its sense, or it's not a comprehensive democracy. And therefore the claim by the West, as it comes around and making noise and nagging, and forcing itself on other people, I think is extremely wrong. And Africa has to evolve its own form of democracy, like how China is. China has democratized the economy because after all, what is the purpose of democracy? Is to participate in all kinds of ways, people have voices. So if people only have voices in politics and they don't have any voice in economics, which is a material, because the purpose of participating in a politics, which is some sort of spiritual participation, is for us to get the material gains, which is economics. Now, if we are participating in this particular political exercise and there's no results which we are actually participating for, then this becomes some sort of cult. It's not really democracy. And so you can see this in the West and the form which they are trying to push all over at the world, and which in many cases they are using it for their own interest, that they are pushing much more their gains, because they are using this to manipulate. If you go to Niger and what happened there, they are manipulating this system. They have hijacked it and manipulated it to continue to gain while the people are starving. So I think that Africa has to evolve, as Nkrumah envisioned, has to evolve its own form of democracy in which people participate, and we have to broaden it. Ours has to be broadened. People should not even, sometimes people should not even vote on political spaces. They should rather vote on real issues, material gains, like economic policies and the things which are affecting them in their society. I believe that this could be a form of real democracy. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, brother Gonza, for your thoughts on the matter. So in Ethiopia, the population is approximately 135 million. So those eligible to vote should be about 67.5 million. But the actual people who vote in Ethiopia in 2021 was 38.2 million. Which is, as you can see, less than the 67.5 million. And then in Ghana, as you rightly said, about 18 million, just over 18 million registered voters. But the actual voters, you said, was about 10 million. So those eligible to vote and those who actually vote are two different things. And this happens again and again and again everywhere. So, brother Gonza, are you suggesting that maybe people voted on policies that might change things?
Yeah, so I think that people who are participating we have to broaden the scope in African democracy. Okay, we have to broaden the scope of how many people are participating. We can't just have 30% of the population and 70% is not participating, and then we call it democracy. And even out of the 30 who are participating, like in Ghana, about 10 to 11 million people voted. The people who voted for Mahama, about 5 to 6 million, is even much less. It's about 15%. So now you find that 85% of the people did not vote the man who's ruling the country. And we are calling this a democracy, which is ridiculous. So we have to get away from this kind of this thing. And even Nkrumah points out in his book, the Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, and is introducing how the West is forcing this thing on us. That's the only way. They claim that it's the only way of governing yourself, but it is not. It is not. If you examine empirically, if you examine, it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. So if 15% of the voters voted the man who is governing the country, 85% did not vote for him. How is then this majority? How is this a rule of the majority? This is a rule of minority, absolute minority. So I think that we have to broaden it, whether it means increasing, because even in the olden days of African society, when a man attained the age of 14, he was considered a man. He's ready. He's ready. He has been, he has been trained by the father by that age, and he's ready to become a man, even to marry. So we could bring back the consciousness, conscientizing patriotism, so that the young people can start immediately to learn about their country as they are in school, so that by the age of 14, they are ready. They are ready to participate in the electoral process. They are ready to participate in all the policies in the government. But now what we have, these people are left to betting, watching European football, and therefore they tell us that, oh, these people are not ready. Therefore, we should wait for the 18 ones. The 18 years are the ones who are ready. I mean, this is ridiculous. For me, this is ridiculous. So I think that democracy has to be brought back to African definition, and to train our people to be able to understand their society, and then so that they can participate wholly. So if we pull in age 14, all the people who are aged 14, these are ready people. These are completely ready people. They are conscientized from when they come to class, when they start studying, because most of the children, they start studying around 4 years. So by 14 years, if these people have been taught the right thing, they are ready. They are ready to understand what's going on in society, and even respond to these things, and vote on the right things, and demand the right things. So I believe that we have to broaden it as from the African perspective.
But Mr. Gonza, at the age 14, they are still in secondary school.
Yes, they are. But what I'm saying,
the days you were talking about, we didn't have secondary schools those days.
Yes. So what I'm saying is this: is that right now they are looked at as young, but in the olden African society, they were not looked at young. Why? Because they were ready by that time. They had been trained. So we have to go back and have a training system, or whether it is in school, whether it is in what, so that these people, again, as they were in the old African society, they are ready by that time. Because by 14, they were ready to marry. 12, the girls were ready to marry. 14, they were ready to marry. All right? So we can go back. We are not saying that they should marry at that particular age, but we are saying that they should participate in the policies, because they are the ones who are going to be around even much more when the older generation has gone out. So they should start by that point to participate in shaping the future of the society, or the African society.
Yeah, okay. It can sound a bit worrying if girls are marrying at 14, 15. I mean, that sounds a bit worrying, isn't it? Right. Brother Coco, you had your hand up. Or unless it's legacy hand.
I'm back here.
Is it legacy hand, or you want to speak?
Is a fresh hand.
So let me just come in a little bit, Professor Kwame. So what I was saying is not that we should have them marry. Now, there is something which Nkrumah said in one of the speeches, and he said that for the Western system, we will take those things which are good for us. If they are good for us, we will adopt them and adapt them. Those ones which are not working for us, our society, we will reject them. All right. So if you see that they're okay, we can't. It is not reasonable for a man to marry at 14. But at least, for consciousness sake, for participating, he should be able to participate in political affairs. If we reach a consensus as a society that these people should be conscientized, and by this level they should be ready to participate in shaping their society, the decisions that are making up their society, the policies, then they should be ready. So we can filter out what we think that, okay, this one will benefit our society, this one will not benefit, but we should not let it be pushed from outside and someone is imposing it all with this 18. It should be 18. I mean, this kind of thinking is what I think I want us to reject.
Okay. Brother Coco, the time is 9 minutes to 8. Brother Coco.
I won't take as much as these two gentlemen have taken, but I did enjoy listening to them. They have a lot to contribute. And again, which is encouraging, because if we are looking for the youth who know what is required for Africa, then the future is looking good. Following my contribution earlier, I'm thinking, by nature, we are talking about our natural environment. And I think that's something which materialism is about. So the law has to follow our material needs, our material condition as Africans. And by so saying that democracy is natural, then he is excluding any other form of political system which can be derived in any other country. And again, as a follow-up to me saying we have to be open-minded, I think I'm aligned with what Agonza was saying, that we have to look at different environments in Africa and try to adapt our conditions, our laws to follow the conditions under which we live. It's the same, I think. We have talked about this in the past. We have talked about this under my own governance group, which we're presenting here to say, where does the law come from? The law has to come from the land. Why should it be called the law of the land if it's not actually following the land on which it's based? So that democracy has to follow the law, the land. It has to follow the material needs of the people, the conditions of the people. In concluding, let me try to answer one of your questions you were asking. You were saying, oh, they say they practice democracy, but look, they enslaved the African Americans, or look at what they were doing during apartheid. I think Kwame Konza has answered most of that. But let's not forget, it's a ploy, it's a trick for them to continue coming through the back door and imposing on us their needs, their wills, their ways of doing things, whether it's the right thing to do or not the right thing to do. But everything is being controlled externally. And this is what Aristotle has prescribed here for them. And I think that's what Dr. Nkumo was saying to us.
Yeah, thank you. Sister Masha?
No, I have absolutely nothing to say.
You have a lot to say. You've just said in the chat, wow. All I got is wow. You need to explain.
That's right. That's all I've got. Wow, I'm just listening.
With respect to which comment? Because a lot has been said.
On our freedom.
Sorry?
No, I'm listening. I said I'm listening to the brothers pontificate on what is freedom. And I'm listening.
Yeah, he shared his thought. If you don't, you can also share your thought. You said it's wow. All I got is wow. And I'm asking, what is wow? What is a wow about? Can you share your thinking with us?
No, I don't think it's useful. I'm listening.
Okay. All right, thank you. The time is 6 minutes to 8. Thank you all for sharing. I think that we may not have mentioned what for me is the overriding, if you like, point about what Nkrumah is sharing with us, which is that Aristotle had a chance to develop democracy like the sower who went to sow, and his seed withered in the hands or at the hands of Aristotle. Plato also went to Syracuse to teach Dionysius II, invited there by his father Dionysius I to also teach, and that also did not go well. In the first instance, he ended up being a military man, a soldier who went around conquering other lands. So what is Nkrumah telling us? Let's remember that this whole chapter is the relationship between philosophy and society, which is that if you want a particular type of society, then you have to come up with a philosophy that aligns with that kind of society. So here we have two examples that have failed. What is Nkrumah telling us? Could it be that Nkrumah is telling us that we should not assume, I'm just asking, that conscientism being a philosophy, we should not assume that it will thrive. It's possible that even with the best philosophy, so-called perfect philosophy, men and women, society will still not accept it. So just because something is perfect does not mean, or something that you think is perfect doesn't follow that society will accept it. Could it be that is what Nkrumah is drawing our attention to? That we must be mindful ourselves that whatever philosophy that we come up with, we should be mindful that it doesn't follow that that philosophy will thrive. Or in other words, we should not assume that Africa will there'll be a renaissance in Africa. Africa will be renewed on the basis of a new philosophy that we may have come up with. Could it be that is what Nkrumah is drawing our attention to? Because the whole point of this paragraph is to tell us that there is a relationship between philosophy and society. But if you want a new society, if you want a new kind of society, you must come with a new philosophy. And yet, here are two great examples from history, and it failed. So what is it telling us? So that's what I am getting from what we are reading. We'll build on this next week. Thank you all for coming. The time is 2 minutes to 8. This is our first philosophy discussion in the new year. Some of us are still on holidays. Some of you have gone back to work, and so on and so forth. So yeah, so thank you. Brother Pigeon, you highlighted something.
I'm interested.
Share with us and then make the announcements, and then we bring the meeting to a close.
I'm interested on the danger that Nkrumah prescribed and saw in his introduction, which probably we are called upon not to suffer the same, when he said that with single-minded devotion, the colonial student meanders through the intricacies of philosophical systems, and yet this system did not aim at providing a philosophical account of the world in the circumstances and conditions of their time. For even philosophical systems are facts of history. By the time, however, that they come to be accepted in universities for exposition, they have lost the vital power which they had at their first statement. They have shed their dynamism and polemic references. These are results of academic treatment which they are given. The academic treatment is as a result of attitude to philosophical system, as though they were nothing to them but statements standing in logical relations to one another. So to me, I'm just saying that we might avoid, and I think it's what Nkrumah is calling upon us by criticizing those two great philosophies, that we do not serve the single-minded devotion, and that we might open our mind, and in line with what Brother Kwame is saying also, is that we can have a perfect thing but maybe lack perfect implementation, because philosophy and people for implementation are two different things. You can have a good name or a good image with bad name, and this all we must be up to, because what I know is the implementation that matter, and the implementation of whether good or bad depends on the implementer and not actually what to be implemented. So once again, Brother Kwame, as you say, yes, this is our first discussion for this year, and we've done now 100 and almost 90 something discussions of our previous classes, and I want to appreciate everybody who has joined us. And we are looking forward to more fruitful year, more progressive year, and a year that we can continue learning and expanding our consciousness, as we are also pushing towards political actions. Brother Gonzo is running a political organization, ACAP, which is moving to political action. I'm also running a political organization that's moving to political action. And all of us are learning one thing or the other. So thank you very much for your support the whole of last year, and those who have joined us for this year. Like Sister Marsha is now coming actively towards the end of the year and the start of this year. We look forward to have you throughout the year and see how we can move forward as a people. Thank you very much once again, Brother Kwame. And this Saturday we'll be having a conversation on how to come up with a unified governance structure for the continent. If you think you can discuss something in that line or present to us your thinking in regards to how do we have a unified governance structure for the continent during our Africa unification class, please feel free to get in touch with me, because that is our topic for this Saturday. Thank you, and once again, Brother Kwame.
Thank you very much.
That's it. Yeah, thank you all very much for coming. Brother Gonza, Brother The King, Brother Coco, Sister Marsha, Sister Ida, and Pigeon. Thank you all for coming. we are on record as being those who attended the first class for this year. Thank you.